We have some amazing resources here in Chatham-Kent, and one that we can't leave off the docket here is Prosperity Roundtable, and I'm happy to be joined by Phil Mock, who is the project coordinator. Phil, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So I got to ask you, how are you doing during this very interesting time in our municipality, province, and of course, the entire world?
It's a good question. Myself, I'm doing pretty okay. I'm working from home right now, so I'm staying safe, practicing social distancing. That being said, we're working hard to try and engage the community as best as possible and share updates around policies and legislations for income support programs, so people know exactly where to turn for support. So I think we're doing pretty okay right now, and I hope everyone out there is doing well too.
That's great. I think every day is a new day, and we look to our senior levels of government to give us those guidelines of what's going on. And we are in the thick of COVID-19. There is a dim light at the end of this tunnel. Our senior levels of government are slowly opening up in phases to reopen the economy. What kind of resources are coming from our levels of government that will be in place to assist the citizens of CK to get back on their feet?
That's a really good question. Right now, there are actually a ton of supports available. So, for example, businesses to reduce business layoffs, they have the emergency wage subsidy. They have access to credit through the Canada Emergency Business Account and grants through the Community Futures Network for rural businesses and communities. There's supports for farmers, fish harvesters, and food processors in our community that will provide, $1,500 per temporary foreign worker to support this sector as they follow the mandatory 14-day isolation period for these foreign workers. There's income supports for individuals and people who are self-employed, like employment insurance or the emergency relief benefit. There's also been increases to the Canada Child benefit, and that's coming in May. The GST credit was increased on April the 9th. Mortgage payment deferrals, as well as actually a brand new program that's just come out. It's a top-up program that's going to be provided from the federal government through the provinces, and it's meant to top up low-income earners. So low income they define as under $2,500 per month. It's for essential workers who are going to be on the front lines doing this job day in, day out. Could it be doctors, nurses? It could be people working grocery stores. Anybody in an essential business, it's going to help top up their salary.
That's great.
So in many ways, these programs are helping CK citizens right now. And I really would recommend looking at the Canada Economic Response Plan. They have a huge list of income support programs. But in future, to answer your question, in future, it really is unclear at this moment what supports will be available and directly focused on reopening up the economy across the country and in the province and in CK itself. These programs that I mentioned, they're meant to really be bridges. As you can see, some of them are 3 months in span, some of them are 6 months, and they're really just meant to bridge the gap between when COVID-19 started affecting people and bridge it to the time that we can get back to quote unquote a new normal, right? So it's just a bridge right now. So we're not quite sure if there's any new programs coming out, but right now it kind of seems that that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think, again, the resources from senior levels of government have been amazing. And, I think everyone's gotten their heads together to really figure out, what can we do in this time of crisis? And it's definitely hit home for me to see how much we banded together to try and, pick up the pieces one piece at a time. So if you've never visited the CK Prosperity Roundtable website, prosperityroundtable.com, a lot of really interesting information on there. But when I was visiting there, one statement really hit home for me. Poverty is real in CK. After this, the average household is going to feel this strain, but the rest of our economy will also feel this. Will anything be added to, if you've also looked at the website, the CK Poverty Action Plan, is anything to be added in light of this effects of COVID-19?
Yeah, so for those who don't know us or are new to sort of the CK Prosperity Roundtable, we are a local initiative who's working to reduce and end poverty across Chatham-Kent. And what Eric had mentioned was the idea of a poverty action plan or a poverty strategy. We have spent the past 9 months building this strategy alongside people and communities across Chatham-Kent. And we were actually just about to launch it when we realized that we need to take a step back and renegotiate or look at what's going on with COVID-19 because we are going to start seeing a new normal, right? We need to have a strategy that will help us meet the new demands of a different tomorrow. So we're revitalizing it. We're looking at different opportunities that are coming up. We see this as actually a time of opportunity, though, of course, it is a time where there's a lot of negative effects. It's also a time for opportunity because change can happen and needs to happen in many ways. So, for example, I know that when you look at different sectors, businesses, individuals, right? If you look at businesses, especially in the downtown cores of the smaller communities, right? They're going to be wondering, well, do we have to increase traffic to get them back up to speed? Maybe we're looking at revitalization plans for the downtown cores. For individuals who might have been employed their entire life, but now the business they worked at is closed down and they're now either on Ontario Works or on employment insurance. They're wondering, well, how do I navigate? How do I get through the systems to get back on my feet? So these are the types of things we're looking to incorporate into our plan before we launched it, because we have to be responsible to the fact that COVID-19 has really changed our community and affected it in a lot of ways.
There are some services that were brought in light of COVID-19, hydro rate changes. I think on some of the website there's something about rent on there. Do we have any indication of when these are going to be lifted through these stages of phases, or are these going to be put in place for quite some time?
That's another good question, because even though the province of Ontario has released their sort of three-step plan for reopening the economy and reopening our province, they haven't connected that with the support programs or the reduction in hydro rates or any services that they put in place. They haven't connected it. So we don't know if by step 2 they're going to get rid of X, Y, and Z programs. We don't have that connection yet. But a lot of the programs that have come out of the federal government especially do have cutoff dates. And that's just because of legislation. If you're putting legislation through for a temporary program, you have to have a cutoff date. I don't think the federal government would be in a position where they hit the cutoff date, and if there's still an issue, they're going to say, well, we don't know what's going on, good luck. I think they would extend it at that point, but it's all based on how fast we're able to reopen our economy and our province. So I think we really have to look at that connection, and that should be coming out probably in the next couple of weeks as the province and federal government make those connections. I think right now another piece of the puzzle is that if we don't see that connection made, then my worry is that, as I said, these programs are bridges, right? They're really just bridges for a couple months to help businesses and individuals and different groups survive just for a couple months until we can reopen. Yeah. The problem is if we don't connect that reopening phase, the three-step phase in Ontario, with the ending date to these programs, then I worry that what's going to happen is people are going to be slowly pushed off this ledge as the bridge sort of ends, but there's nothing to catch them on the other side. So we really have to work with our local MPs and MPPs to really advocate to make sure they make that connection.
I think everyone's been facing a lot of challenges. What's been some of your biggest challenges during this time?
Well, it's a great question. I think for us, we are at the base of it, we are community-driven, community-based work. So we like to be on the ground, meeting people, talking to people, getting people in groups and working together. And that really is not allowed at this time in many ways. So for us internally as an organization, we've really struggled trying to figure out how do we still engage people across Chatham-Kent effectively, make sure they feel they're involved, they're engaged, we keep the momentum going in our work. At the same time, we still are maintaining social distancing. We're still practicing public health regulations. So we are maintaining safety for ourselves and our community. I think if you're looking at challenges across Chatham-Kent, if you don't mind me kind of taking the question in a different direction here, what we were talking about earlier, which is this community is a rural community in many ways. Outside Chatham and outside maybe Wallaceburg, we have lower population density. These are smaller communities. And when I think of a small business, I'm thinking of, the downtown cores in Dresden, the downtown cores in Ridgetown, even Wallaceburg, and even the downtown cores in Chatham. These are mom and pop shops. These are places where it's, a couple or an individual who owns one store. They're the only employee. And some of the supports that are out there for the small businesses don't allow these individuals to be eligible based on the definition of small businesses by the different levels of government. So the challenges are these individuals are facing potentially permanent closures of their businesses, which could really affect our downtown cores in the smaller communities. I definitely won't affect the spirit, because I know a lot of these communities have strong community spirit, but it could affect their ability to have a diverse employment sector in that community, which could affect jobs after this, which we all know after COVID-19 is starting to slow down, jobs are going to be a big conversation on the table.
Absolutely. So let's turn that negative into a positive. Let's talk about some of the good news stories that you and your team have accomplished, and what's the bright lights in Chatham-Kent right now during COVID.
Great question, because you're right. I think sometimes we focus a little bit too much on the what's happening, the negatives. We need to flip it into a positive. So for us, the Prosperity Roundtable, we know that income supports have been a big challenge for a lot of people. I mean, it's very complex trying to figure out how to navigate these systems and apply, and am I eligible, all these big questions. So we've been doing a lot of posts on Facebook and working with people one-on-one to really make sure they know how to access the supports they're eligible for, and helping them navigate those pieces of the puzzle. But we're only one cog in a very big chain of a lot of work going into this community to react and to connect people who are struggling the most to the supports and services they need. So for example, United Way has really been an amazing spearhead of a lot of initiatives. They've been doing the Local Love campaign. They're getting people to connect with them. There's funding opportunities for different community organizations to continue the amazing supports and services they're doing. We know of a local organization called Spark, and they are just a group of 2 people, but they are sparking kindness across this municipality. Their whole idea is, how can we just do it with a small act of kindness? Can we spark a greater sense of community across Chatham-Kent? And they're the ones going around to the smaller communities, filling up the food pantries. We know that the local churches in each community, we know the food banks are doubling their efforts to try and make sure the needs of people in this community are met as best as possible. And of course, announced just today, the municipality, through Employment and Social Services, has done an amazing job in opening up the temporary shelter. And this shelter is really going to be a 24/7 operation, and it's meant to take people who are couch surfing or who are homeless, gain them those supports they need, provide them with food, a bed, places to stay, but also, most importantly, wraparound supports. So they don't just stay there for a night, they're actually getting the supports they need to find housing, to get out of homelessness and start thriving again in our community. So there's a lot going on. So don't think nothing's going on, because there's a ton. Yeah. I would really recommend checking with United Way on their website, ckgives.ca, because they have a lot of information as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of partnerships with them with their local updates, and they've been doing a great job. I'm glad you mentioned the new shelter that's opened up. I know a lot of people were worried about Hope Haven. It was one of our only standing free ones there, so it's good that the municipalities figured out something to do in light of all this. So you and your team have been doing an amazing job. There's a lot of great resources out there to help us during these trying times. Phil, thanks for joining us today. Is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe we missed before we wrap up here?
I think the only thing I want to really make clear is that, while this is a trying time, we really have to come together as a community. I think actually Mayor Caniff said it best when he was on his, when he was talking about the recovery task force he's putting together, the economic recovery task force, when he said, yes, senior levels of government are going to step up and provide those supports and programs. But in Chatham-Kent, we have to come together as a community. This is a perfect time to come together as a community, work together, and find new ways of acting so that we can actually choose as a community ourselves what the new normal will be like. We get to make that decision for ourselves. So instead of reacting, we can be proactive. So there's a lot of work going into that right now. But if you are an individual, if you're a business, if you're self-employed, if you're anybody, even a senior, anybody in between, you should really check out Canada's Economic Response Plan, because if you haven't already, there's tons of programs and supports out there. You might not be eligible, but it's still good to check and see what they are, so you can take a look and see if you can apply and get those supports as needed. Otherwise, visit us at prosperityroundtable.com for more information on COVID-19 income supports, or just to check out our website and get connected.
Absolutely. Thanks, Phil, for all the great information. I hope when this is all said and done, I think CK needs a big old block party to celebrate as we open up things. But again, thanks for all you're doing, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Eric, for this. I really appreciate it.